Highway Point. For this week's Read and Reflect, I'm going to be reading from Philippians chapter 4, verse 9. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Now this verse comes at the end of Paul's letter to the Philippians, and he's very bluntly saying, follow my example. That's a significant statement, especially when you consider the verse that comes immediately before this. In verse 8, it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. In this passage, Paul is trying to focus the church on what is truth, on what's right, on what's admirable. And he's saying, I'm your example. Listen to the words I've said. Do the things I do. Follow my lead. You know, when I read this passage, there was a number of different verses, other things that Paul had said or done that came to mind for me. And one was from Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 through 2. And he says, follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. He says, follow God's example. And that's what we see Paul trying to do throughout his ministry, is follow Christ's example. Paul was modeling what that looks like. And he's showing the church what it's like to be an imitator of God. Now, Paul is still an example for us. I mean, this may have been written to the church in Philippi, but we're able to read these letters that Paul had written to the different churches. We're able to read about the things that Paul did. And so Paul is still an example to us, just as he was to the church in Philippi. And we can follow his lead. We've been able to hear in Sunday morning with our teens during our equipping hour. We've been reading through the book of Acts and seen Paul's ministry and the way he faced a lot of adversity, a lot of persecution as he sought to reach people, both Jew and Gentile. So Paul has been quite an example for us as we look to apply that scripture and ask ourselves what needs to change in our lives this week. So just as Paul is saying, I'm your model, follow me, do these things, I think we're called to be imitators of God as well. And we're called to model what is true, what is pure, what is right, what is lovely, what is excellent and admirable. Now, does that mean that we always live perfect lives? No. We're human. We're going to struggle. We're going to mess up. We're going to sin. Paul wasn't perfect, but we strive each day to be the best imitators of God that we can be. And I love in our verse here, Philippians 4:9, that last sentence says that as you put these things into practice, the God of peace will be with you. Now, Paul, I think, knows better than most that following Christ, being an imitator of God, is not an easy thing. It doesn't mean an easy life. We look at the life that Christ lived during his ministry on earth. It was not easy. There was a lot of persecution. When we look at Paul's ministry in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 27, he talks about what he's faced. And Paul says, are they servants of Christ? I'm out of my mind to talk like this. I am more. I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I have labored and toiled, and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst, and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. Paul went through an awful lot as he went through his ministry, as he was trying to be an imitator of God. It's certainly not easy, but it's something that we're called to do. And Paul says that as we put these things into practice, the God of peace will be with us. So, Waypoint this week, be imitators of God, be imitators of Paul, and be a model for others. Have a great week, Waypoint.